and painted, and then I was an art major actually in high school when I was going to high school in California. Well, I had put art on the on the back burner for many years. I was a single parent. I had a daughter, and so I worked in another field. I worked in the medical field while I raised her. She wanted to eat and things like that, so I did that, and then after my daughter, her name's Anna, after she had gone out on her own and a few years, and I knew that if I wanted to take the risk of being an artist, I wasn't going to ask somebody else to starve with me. So I've been a full-time artist for 12 years. I did it a lot. I mean, I did it part-time always while I was working, but it's pretty hard to produce a lot of artwork on weekends and in the evenings. But so for about a dozen years, I've been doing artwork full-time. I started working about 6 or 7 years ago. I definitely decided I wanted to work on issues about the border and about immigration and about gender and violence. So I started this project probably around 5 years ago. That's when I started doing research and thinking how could I, with what I bring as an artist. I mean, many people have done work about it, and I had to think about how I would do it. And since I was trained primarily as a painter, I decided that I wanted to do portraits of the victims. I started looking at the history of art, and I thought, who usually gets their portraits painted? Who is immortalized through art? It's always been the rich, the noble, and it's really poor people. And those artists that did paint portraits is always looking at those people as the other, not really identifying. And so I thought that these are all these victims of the feminicide on the border are kind of considered disposable. So I thought that if I did portraits of them, and I wanted to do very, very small portraits because I wanted it to be very personal. Also, it's a very practical reason. How could I do 150 portraits and have them be 6 feet big? It just wouldn't work out. So I did very small, very kind of icon-like portraits. As I continue this project, I continue painting portraits because I continue finding. I go on the internet and I look, maybe I find some names and then I start looking for if I can find a photograph. Sometimes I write to some organizations in Ciudad Juarez, especially an organization called Casa Amiga has helped me. They've sent me as many photographs as they have. So I do continue to do it. It's an ongoing project. And I continue to look for other venues. I've shown it twice at 2 universities in Kentucky, and then I showed it in November at Northwestern University, and that's when Carlos and Christina came and they saw the show, and they decided they wanted to have it here. And we thought that it was going to serve a very different population than it does at a very Ivy League college, that we would bring it down and we'd have it be in the community. I really believe that art has the power to engage people and provoke dialogue, and so I think, we can do visual art and we can do just to create beauty, and that's perfect and that's great on its own, or we can use that power to, like I say, to provoke dialogue. For me, this was a very important subject, a very important topic to talk about. And I've talked about this before. I live in Kentucky, and I call this kind of where I live, middle America, where the Latino population is just now growing. But nobody's heard about this in Kentucky or Ohio. Maybe people that are teaching at universities, feminist activists, but a lot of people don't know about it. And so when I first started doing the project, I did it with the intention of showing it there. I really didn't dream I'd get the chance to show it in Chicago. Been to Mexico to do the interviews. When I started, I wanted to go, but there's always that big issue called dinero, that the research was a lot, and reading a lot about it. I'm not an academic, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a sociologist or a political scientist. I did it as a mother, really. That's my reaction. A reaction, it's an artist's response and a mother's response to the tragedy that's happening there. And I think that's what I tried to do in painting each portrait. I wanted to make it something kind of small and precious. I wanted to keep a memory as a mother would want to see their child.